a message?
Boss! Boss! There's trouble at Emmanuel's. Come on, hurry up!
The fun never stops.
Come on, look lively, Rooks.
Tell me you've touched a place, at the sound of the road, cracking on your neck. They tell me you never give up, like the song that was sold, singing in your heart. So honey, please don't let go, or you fall into the dead of night. So honey, please don't let go. You better learn to fly, 'cause they're gonna point you up at the sky. The more that you want, the more that you need it. I know you'll be by my side. I know that you'll be by my side.
Wait! Let you take it from here, lads. Try the bitter.
Who's that?
It's actually quite drinkable. Go on, toast your noble boss, this thief of children. Or you could do better. Join me. Join the Rooks. Go get him!
Jacob, Mr. Fry, listen. We can split the money. I mean, just take it all.
Rooks with me.
I'm going with a rook. Come on.
Or soon enough.
You know what? I gotta say this about that trailer, Lark. I gotta say it. You know, they're right. Oppression has to end. And the first way it starts is not playing this game. Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Assassin's Creed Ranked, the series where Lark and I take a look at every major Assassin's Creed game that was released and give it an official grade and then put it on a tier list to decide which game was the best, which game was the worst, and where all the other games fall. We've gone through a lot. We've gone through the first game, second, Brotherhood, Revelations, third. We worked our way up, guys, and we've had a lot of fun until now. So, funny story before we get started on this game. Lark and I, we do it in turns. You know, what we do is Lark will play a game, then I'll play a game, then Lark will play a game, then I'll play a game. Now, Lark did Unity, and so it was my turn to do Syndicate. And I was going to do Syndicate. I actually started it, but I was so frustrated with it that Lark said, you know what, man, let me do it. I better do it. And Lark, I deeply apologize. I feel you might have been emotionally scarred by the experience.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
It still hurts. Yeah, I can tell. It's not an easy thing to deal with. Anyway, so Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This is I'll say this. It's one of these games that makes you really stop and ask questions like,
Why?
and how? And no, we'll just stick with why and how. Those seem to be the best questions. All right, let's stop making jokes now. Let's actually talk about it. So,
jokes are still going to come.
Of course they are. So, briefly, Lark, what is Assassin's Creed Syndicate about?
Basically, if you've ever seen a story take place in the Victorian era that was made in the last 20 years, you pretty much know the plot of Syndicate.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Industrialism and capitalism bad. That's it.
Okay, so more specifically, the story follows two assassins, the Fry twins, Jacob and Evie Fry. And yes, you heard me right, Evie. Everyone hails this as, it's the first Assassin's Creed game with a female lead. We'll get to that.
Liberation, but hey.
Technically Liberation, but Liberation wasn't a major staple. But anyway, back to the point. So basically, the Fry twins had a very famous father who was an assassin, but he's dead now. And the Fry twins are trying to live up to that legacy, but they both have different ways of approaching it. Right now, they've basically just been doing odd jobs around England, but London is currently in the hold of this evil bigwig Templar. This one big Templar, and
Brother George, it is as I feared. London has fallen. Thrice I have written to you begging your aid. Thrice you've responded with silence. And yet I write again. So desperate my need, so few my options. I need you. London needs you. You would say it is too great of a task, or that it is not yet time to strike. Patience, you would counsel. But whilst you wait, the Templars consolidate their power. They have chosen a Grand Master so ruthless, so thorough, one might think Reginald Birch himself had returned. His name is Crawford Starrick, and he intends to rule the world. There is no aspect of society he does not control, no industry that escapes his grim touch. By day, it is corrupt merchants and venal politicians who hold court. Come night, a vicious street gang known as the Blighters strikes terror in the hearts of all. There is no business untainted by his poison, no person unexploited, be it by duplicity or force. Our enemy has designs on the highest office of them all. And so, as you look inward, and dare I say it, afraid, Crawford Starrick's ambition is fixed on the beyond, to kingdoms and continents as yet unconquered, though not for long, for he knows, as I have warned you time and time again, whosoever controls London controls the world.
Lark, how would you describe this big, bad villain Templar?
Oh, Crawford Starrick? There's only one way to describe him, as a weak Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Yeah, again, we'll get to that.
We'll
get to him. All right, anyway, so they hear that Starrick is up to no good, and he basically controls all of London, and he has controlled London for a long time now. So the Fry twins decide to break convention and head to London and try to release London from his control. Along the way, we see that the twins have two different ideas of what it means to be assassins. Evie Fry wants to look for the piece of Eden, the Shroud, and try to live up to Father's legacy, whereas Jacob Fry just wants to live out his boyish fantasies of making his own street gang called the Rooks and use it to dominate all of London.
I've always thought of myself as a gang leader. Firm, but fair. Well, I have uniforms, and I'll unite a mix of disenfranchised outsiders under one name. That's it, Evie. We can rally them to our side.
Oh, like the way that you rallied those card players at the Oakbrook Tavern into the river.
Oh, that was different. They beat me at whist. I can see it now. We'll call ourselves the Rooks.
You're never good at chess either.
Have you got a better plan?
Find the piece of Eden.
Oh,
Well,
Both Fry twins are incredibly stupid, both are incredibly annoying, and both have major flaws in their goals, desires, and how they go about them. And if the game was a little bit more self-aware about it, I think it'd be more likable. But, God, there's so much to not like about this game.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to get this, without losing our minds, let's break this down. Okay. Let's start with Let's start with story.
All right. Well, we'll start with the story. So let me give you the briefest rundown I possibly can.
Okay, here we go.
As you already said.
Right.
So first, we're going to talk about what's happening outside the Animus. The team that you saw from Unity, they're going after the Shroud of Eden.
Right.
Which has the ability to apparently heal you. And so are the Templars. And so they want to trace down the Fry twins' ancestry because they apparently find it in London.
Okay.
So, that's all you need to know about that. That's it. That's all there is to it. Then, in the Animus itself, you are playing as the Fry twins, who are working outside of London for the Assassins, trying to dismantle Crawford Sterrick's industrial machine. And you realize this isn't getting you anywhere, but the Assassin's like, no, you can't possibly go to London and, do what Assassins have been doing since Altair. That would just be, do what we would expect you to do.
What, dismantling giant power structures and evil titans of power and danger and Templars? When have Assassins ever done anything like that?
I tell you, it's just too tough. It's.
What about London?
What about it?
We're wasting our time out here.
You know as well as I do that London has been the domain of the Templars for the last 100 years. They are far too strong yet. Patience.
The Templars have found a new piece of Eden.
Sir David is dead. They do not know how to use it. The Council shall guide us. Sound advice that your father would have seconded.
It's too difficult. Clearly, they never played the game.
Clearly, they've never played Brotherhood.
Yeah, anyway, you go... Evie and Jacob both say, it would be irresponsible to go. We can't go against their orders. All right, let's go against their orders.
The gentle sound of opportunity passing us by.
So what's stopping us? London is waiting to be liberated. Forget Crawley.
Father would have wanted us to listen.
Oh, Father! You could continue his legacy in London.
Freeing future generations from a city ruled by Templars. Jacob Fry, you might just be right.
Then shall we?
Yes.
That seems to be their whole modus operandi. Just, hey, did the authorities that be tell us not to do something?
We're going to rebel against the authority, man. Unless it's Queen Victoria. We love Queen Victoria.
Yeah, you're going to notice a theme. Let's keep going.
Yeah, anyway, so they go to London, meet up with Henry Green, who's the one assassin in London. No, literally, he's the only member of the Assassins
and
in
he's
London.
from India, so there are no British assassins in London.
The best part about this, hey, did you guys want an Assassin's Creed in India? Yeah. Well, guess what? We got an Indian assassin here. Oh, do we get to play as him? No, screw you. It's like, does he get to have a good character? No, screw you. It's like, what is he? We will let him snog once, just once, with the British chick. Will it be satisfying? Not at all. It's like, well, what's the good side? He is more likable than the two main characters. Oh.
Put together.
Yep, because Henry Green is the voice of reason for, the 4 scenes he's in there. But anyway, so they show up, and immediately Henry breaks down the situation. Okay, Crawford has a gang called the Blighters that basically run...
Can we stop a moment and appreciate that name for a second? The Blighters? When Ubisoft was designing this game, did they just go with the most British-sounding name that they could? The Blighters? Let's name them the Blighters!
One thing I actually do like about this game that I find funny is that literally in the subtitles, they will have translations for, British slang. It was okay, for those of you that speak actual English, you're going to need some translations for this.
Although I would like a translation for Toad in the Hole. What the heck is that? Toad in the Hole, lads! God save the Queen!
Yeah,
Our British fans hate us right now.
Don't hate us. Hate Ubisoft for making this. This is Britain, don't be the Britain that Ubisoft thinks you are.
Be the Britain that we think you are. Okay, that's still not great. Be the Britain...
Oh gosh, we don't hate our British fans. We just hate Britain portrayed in Ubisoft games.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. Okay, carry on.
Because Britain actually has an interesting history. Ubisoft doesn't.
Britain has an amazing history.
Yeah, but Ubisoft. Don't tell Ubisoft. That would shatter their.
Great Britain, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. Y'all have an amazing history,
and they screw it up twice. Now, anyway,
let's get on with it.
But yeah, so they show up, and there's basically this gang called the Blighters,
right?
And they're also. The Templars also control pretty much all forms of industry and communication, all that jazz. They control the city from top to bottom.
Right.
And they say, okay, so how do we go about dismantling this? Evie's like, well, we need to go and find the piece of Eden. They don't even know what it is yet until later they find it's a shroud. And, of course, Jacob says, well, I want to go start the street gangs, the Rook. And I'm going to take the Whitechapel Clinkers, another dumb street name, and I'm going to turn them into the Rooks. Like, oh, is that going to be our first mission? No, just immediately after that cutscene, the Clinkers are no more. They're now the Rooks. How did Jacob recruit them? We don't know.
We never see how he recruits the Rooks. We never see how he builds the Rooks. But I think the biggest problem I have with the Rooks, as an idea for the story, here's my biggest problem with it. Starrick, that's his name, right?
Yeah, it's Starrick.
It's Starrick, okay. His whole thing, what they talk about is that he's using the Blighters, an evil street gang, to crush and steal and loot and oppress the people of England, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So your response is to build another street gang and fight a street war with this street gang to do what? Let's say you win. Let's say the Rooks take over and you've removed the Blighters. Okay. What is the street gang going to do? Are they going to give money to the homeless? Are they going to collect for charity? I thought street gangs were, street gangs. It's just the new devil. It's you've replaced the devil you knew with the devil you don't know.
But you're forgetting something very important.
What am I forgetting?
The Rooks were green.
You know what? You're right. They do wear green.
All is forgiven.
They seem to forget that. Okay, I mean, obviously, we're supposed to root for the assassins, and obviously, there's going to be moral gray areas in some territories, and I wouldn't mind that. Sometimes you do need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes you need to take a little step into the evil to bring about a greater good. I can understand that and even appreciate that in storytelling, and I would like that maybe if we saw some of that in our villains. But we don't. We're going to get to those in character, I know, but I still think that's ridiculous. His whole plan, I want to build my own street gang. I've always wanted my own street gang. The Rooks. Okay, how are you going to build them? The Rooks. Okay, I got that. You want the Rooks, but what are you going to do with them that's different from what the Blighters are doing? We're going to build the Rooks. No, I got you're going to build the Rooks. What are you going to do with the Rooks? We're going to stop Starrick. Okay, and then when you stop Starrick, what are the Rooks going to do?
The Rooks.
With the Rooks.
Am I Rooks?
According to the upgrades that you can give them, apparently you can run pubs and gambling operations, I guess.
You are aware street gangs do far more than underground businesses, right?
I mean, at least give in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you were a pirate before you became an assassin, where it's like, maybe we shouldn't just harass British shipping now that we're with the assassins, but with this, it's like, you are with the Creed from the beginning, and just immediately, crime, boys.
They woke up and said violence.
That is Jacob in a nutshell. I woke up today and chose violence. It even goes down to, I'll get into this more in gameplay, but Jacob is the brawler of the two.
Okay, we're getting too off topic. Let's keep going.
Now they both decide, Evie and Jacob say, well, I can't like you. Well, I can't like you either. Mm-hmm. And so they both go off to do their own missions. Jacob gets the majority of shit done. Because he actually goes after and he actually starts killing off the Templars. Yeah. There's 8 of them, and there's one that's manufacturing cough syrup that's bad for people. Then he's the first to die. Then you go after a bank guy. It's weird. There's also a colonel, or he's some sort of noble that was in the cavalry that's a pompous dick.
Right.
There's also the woman boss, Thorn, who is there because Evie needed somebody to kill. And there's also a woman who is Starrick's cousin that happened to own an omnibus company, which, ooh.
Scary.
Yeah. And, those are all the ones that I can think. There might be, 1 or 2 more, but a lot of them are very much forgettable. And so you work slowly through killing off all those guys and slowly taking back London, though I'm gonna be real, you can take back London probably in an afternoon if you're really dedicated. And once you do that, you can go after the final mission for Starrick. It's very bare bones basics as far as story is concerned.
And what's Evie up to while all this is going on?
She's hunting for the piece of Eden and killing Thorn, and trying very, very poorly to make bedroom eyes at Henry Green, who I can forgivably say he misses it the first few times because, well, Evie's not exactly good at the whole, hey, I'm into you sort of thing.
Oh my god, she has a flaw.
She has a flaw.
Okay,
not an intentional one.
Okay, so then you basically, as I recall, after you kill Starrick and retreat. Here's the thing that got me. In the end game, basically, you got to realize Jacob, we'll get more into this in character, but Jacob the whole time is being very irresponsible, basically causing a lot of damage with all of his
He almost wrecks the British economy.
He does a lot of shit wrong. Evie calls him out on it, but he still defends his actions, which causes them to have a schism. They break off from each other. They decide they'll never work together again. But then they do decide to work together just to bring down the bad guy, Starrick, and get the Shroud. And then right after this, keep in mind that their big breakup argument was literally right before the final series of missions.
Starrick is making his move. The Piece of Eden is somewhere inside Buckingham Palace.
Let him have it.
I've seen your handiwork across the city. Perhaps you should trust my judgment.
I've been killing Starrick's henchmen. What have you been doing? Let's ask Henry, shall we?
I have been repairing your mistakes. Too much haste is too little speed.
Don't you quote father at me.
That's Plato. And I am sorry this doesn't involve anything you can destroy. Father was right, he never approved of your methods.
Father is dead!
Enough! I have just received word from my spies. At the palace ball tonight, Starrick plans to steal the Piece of Eden, and then eliminate all the heads of church and state.
Once more for old time's sake.
And then we're finished.
Then they have the final mission, and then they decide, you know what, let's make up. We're brother and sister, we're cool.
Shame we won't be partners anymore.
It's for the best, isn't it?
Are you going to wear the shroud and run London?
Whatever it gives, it takes from someone else. You'd continue to age without me. You'd become like father.
A fate worse than death.
Will you wear it?
After you sorted out the boroughs, the chaos I caused, I couldn't compete.
Jacob Fry stepping back. Who's blackmailing you? Is it George?
He wouldn't dare. I've missed you.
Me too. Would it be possible to continue where we left off?
I'd love nothing more.
I'm starting to think Father didn't know everything about everything.
It's kind of like in the sequel of a lot of movies where like they have the romantic interests like divorced or broken up, and you're just like, why? I know they're gonna get back together.
Right.
It's like, why bother? Why bother with this?
Why do you have?
Like, or if you're gonna do that,
but you know, at least with some of those, like take Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. At the end of Spider-Man, he broke it off with MJ because of his responsibilities. In the second movie, though, it took till the end for them to finally bring it back together. Yeah, so give them that credit. In this, they break off from each other literally right before the last mission, and then the last mission finishes up. We're friends again.
There's no effective point where they stop, like where they were not technically working together.
We don't see how they interact. One of the downsides to playing this game is since they spend so little time in each other's company in gameplay, we don't see them work off of each other, so we can see how they're interacting. We don't get to, you know what? I'll save it for character.
Yeah, we'll save it for character, but just the story as a whole, I had to give an F.
Yeah, I agree. This is an F.
Because it's horribly written. It's not really a story. It's a skeleton of a story. It's basically, this is the drawing board room, and they never got past. It's like, you have two twins in the Victorian era. They go to London, and they fight Templars' control of industry and the gangs.
Their goal with the story was very clear. They wanted to say capitalism bad. Capitalism and industry bad. Every villain in this game is a rich plutocrat. They are a rich,
except for one.
But every single one of them owns a lot of industry, owns a lot of corporation. They control kids. They control the factories, and they are literally mustache twirlingly evil. And there is no dichotomy, there's no introspection, there's no reflection, and they don't even allow the characters the decency or time to be reflective of themselves and grow and give us actual characters. Instead, we get a copy paste story of insert rebellious youths who meet up with big bad corporate man, break down big bad corporate man business, kill big bad corporate man. That's what this story was, and given that this is an Assassin's Creed game, I expected better.
Yeah. That was our mistake.
Alright, so that story, F. Okay, moving on to character. I really want to talk character. I just want to talk this so bad.
We're moving that forward in the itinerary. Okay.
I know, we usually save it, but I'm dying to do this. Okay, character. Would you mind?
Go ahead.
Alright, so first of all, let's talk. We've talked a lot about Jacob and Evie. I really want to break them down a bit more. Jacob's whole character comes down to, I'm a cockney brute. I'm the kind of guy who just wants to build up my street gang, and I want to be the little boy that I couldn't be growing up. You know, just I want to live outside of my father's shadow. My father was a prat. You know, that kind of thing. Just he doesn't respect his dad. He doesn't respect anything. He doesn't respect the assassins. He wants to live as a thug. He wants to be a punk, and he uses the assassins to live as he wants to do. And that would be a good character, except it's not explored. There's no point in the story where it's explored whether this is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. You know what? I picked on Connor and Edward Kenway and all them for their progression from vagrant into assassin. In this, he's already an assassin who's using the creed as he sees fit, but there's no point where he goes, man, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Maybe I'm the one who's...
What's worse is they actually get close to that. There's like one mission where there could be some real introspection for it, but they don't capitalize on it. It's when you go to assassinate Roth, who basically takes you out on this basically arson-fueled spree, and at the very end of it, when you have to kill him because he goes too far, there's no point where he's like, holy crap, I could have just as easily become this twisted.
At the very end, he acknowledges that he's reckless, but it's very forced.
It's like one line, it's like, and maybe I went a little too far. But whoopsie, I almost crashed the British economy.
Okay, so he's annoying. Evie's a little better, but not by much. The big slightly. The only difference for me in terms of the two is that Evie's kind of got the right idea somewhat. She recognizes the need to get the piece of Eden, the need to actually do what you're like, save the world, but okay, correct me if I'm wrong, she doesn't seem to portray any real interest in Starrick or breaking down his empire. Everything about her is piece of Eden, piece of Eden, piece of Eden.
There's an interest in Starrick, and but her interest is like, I stop Starrick by getting the piece of Eden before he can. That's her modus operandi. And the problem is here, like, if you look at the dichotomy, it's the classic: the boy's the jock and the girl's the bookworm.
Right.
That's pretty much the description.
It's basically if you took Hermione and Ron and made characters.
Yep.
Like, and here's the thing. Hermione and Ron are cool characters in their own world, but
they had books of development.
They had character, they had development. In this, there is none. Evie is just as infuriating at times. She gets lost in her own thoughts, and her devotion to her father. Okay,
it's barely brought up.
Yeah, like, she claims to speak for her father, like, father was right about you.
It's like,
what was he right about?
I think she mentions father 4 times. I think that's the equivalent of it. And not to mention another problem.
And then at the very end of the story, maybe father didn't know everything about everything.
Like, you've barely mentioned him.
Well, what was he wrong about?
The only meaningful...
Who was your father? And then Darth Vader pokes his head out.
Not you. But the only meaningful conversation I think they had about the father is when she's driving the Maharaja around. That's a story for another time. and the Maharaja is basically saying, by the way, Henry told me about your dad and your mom. Yeah. That's great. That's
cute.
That's amazing. But
I love that.
Also, speaking of which, Henry Green, I feel like there's like, we need a romance. We need a romance. We couldn't do it well after a lot of effort in Unity. So let's not do it well with little effort. Because basically, if you picked up 2 dead fish and said, now kiss, and smush them together, you would have a better chemistry than Henry Green and Evie.
I couldn't even tell they had a thing for a while. You had to tell me. Like, I was like, why is she looking at him like that? And you're like, oh, she likes him. She does?
You have to be told. Henry is just as oblivious until like the 3rd mission.
And then when they finally kiss and she goes, you and I belong in the field together, what has Henry done in the field?
Literally, he's like, I kind of prefer to stay out of the field. She's like, no, I want your jock. Stay in the field. He's like, no, Henry, escape while you can.
Get back to India.
Run. Poor Henry.
Oh, God.
He deserved better.
Okay, so let's move on from them.
Oh, yeah, the assassin, not the assassins, the Templar.
Okay, Starrick.
He is a delightful bit of ham and cheese, and he would make a wonderful Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Okay,
but as a Grand Master of the Templars, he is laughably, like, literally, the first time you see him is just like, they've chosen Starrick, and he just punches a desk. Anger! And then you don't see him again until after you've assassinated the first main Templar, and literally he just goes, I don't care about these rooks and these assassins, they don't bother me.
Look, here's the thing. A lot of people would compare him to someone like Cesare. But here's the difference between him and Cesare Borgia.
Cesare was fun.
Cesare was over the top and present. His presence was felt. And he was shown in the very beginning. His personality was shown. His attitude was shown. And yes, even though he leaves the game for a large majority of it,
but he makes it personal.
He
shows up. He guns down Mario.
In this, Derek doesn't make anything personal. He's literally just a shadowy figure. And when he is shown, here's the thing: other than Cesare, every other Templar that you confront in every game takes you somewhat seriously. They recognize that the assassins they're up against could be a threat. Rodrigo Borgia even chastises the Barbarigos when they try to claim the Pazzis were just stupid and inept. He says they were a venerable family who were brought down by one young assassin. You need to take this seriously. Rodrigo took him seriously in Brotherhood. The Templars took Ezio seriously in Revelation. Hatham Kinway takes Connor seriously. The only reason he doesn't kill him is because he's curious and thinks Connor might turn to their side. In Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the governor takes Edward seriously once he knows what he's capable of and who he's been in contact with. Every Templar takes you seriously because they want their plans to succeed and they fear what the assassins are capable of if they gain any degree of power. A competent Templar, when hearing that one of his best and brightest is taken down, should be going, all right, who's the assassin? Where are they hitting? Let's hunt them down. That's not what he does. In his first scene where he gets this news, he's sipping tea, and all he does is basically brag about how everything in London works for him. Everyone in London is under his boot heel. He doesn't care about these silly assassins. They're nothing to him. I'm going to enjoy my tea. But I think the funniest moment for him, and we're going to play this clip, just the funniest moment for him, we're going to play this clip, is after, I think, who was it?
You assassinate his cousin.
Yes, you assassinate his cousin, and it shows him playing the piano and singing a sad song about it. You know what? Play the clip.
When coldness or deceit shall slide, the beauty now they prize, and deem it but a faded light which beams within your eyes. When hollow hearts must wear a mask.
Mr. Starrick!
I told you not to disturb me! Till break your own to see. In such a moment I but ask that you remember me. That you remember me.
Crawford.
Okay, you know what I love about that? It was so out of nowhere and so cartoonishly evil. I literally forgot this was supposed to be based on real life. I literally forgot they were trying to tell us a historical fiction story. I literally stopped and thought, okay, what does Wendy Woodpecker pop up? But okay, you want to hear the next funny part? After he does that, he then says this.
Your passion is most welcome, Miss Thorne. But we cannot let our emotions disrupt the lawful structures of society. If we do that, the enemy wins.
Yes, we shouldn't react with emotion, said the man who literally gunned down a man for interrupting his sad song. You stupid... And who can take this dude seriously? And then in his last moments, after you kill him, you'd think he'd have some kind of introspection. He'd have some kind of bold words to say, kind of like, the governor in Assassin's Creed Black Flag pointing out that you've really grown, you've turned from just a just a stupid privateer into an actual competent man who knows what he wants. How Hatham even said he was proud of you as Connor for standing up for what you believed in, even if he thought it was wrong. How Rodrigo, Rodrigo recognized that Ezio is a better man than his own son. Like, all these people recognized you and had interesting things to add or say to you. And this guy, what is he at? Like, we just...
London will perish without me.
You flatter yourself.
I would have created a paradise.
The city belongs to the people. You are but one man.
I am at the very top of the Order!
You were Mr. Starrick.
You were.
I was going to do great things. I was going to make Britain amazing. I had everything.
My mustache ran out of wax. It's just like I think there's a total of like 6 or 7 scenes with him in the game, and
all of them are pointless.
Most of them are pointless. I only remember the one I truly remember is like the gunshot scene, just because I found it so jaw-droppingly funny and stupid.
We couldn't stop laughing
because it's just so stupid. And and if you look at the other assassination targets, the other Templar targets, most of them are very much one note. The first Templar target that you take out is literally like the first time you see him is when you go kill him. I don't know how this man's philosophies or anything you.
None of them ever argue philosophy with you, do they?
Maybe you could argue a little bit, but still, probably the most memorable one that you kill, other than Starrick himself, is Roth, and that's because he's so batshit insane.
Well, I think the whole idea was, when you think about Assassin's Creed, it's a battle between two ideologies: one, freedom, despite its flaws, and the other, complete control, for the sake of security. And you can have a very interesting argument between the two. I would have liked to have seen the opposite side from the Templars' vantage point here. I would have liked to have heard their argument as to why they think what they're doing is right. We never get that. We never get an argument.
You get a guy that just kicks over a beggar's hat full of coins and go, "Get a job!" And I'm like, "Ooh," says the bank robber.
But anyway, okay, so let's wrap up with character. Okay, so what would we grade character? F.
Just... it's like all the characters are pretty much one-dimensional, bland, and boring, and just stupid.
Even the villain can't save it.
No, the villain is bad. The heroes are bad. The support characters are flat and one-dimensional.
We'll get to those. All right, so let's go into gameplay. Let's talk gameplay. Okay,
gameplay is getting a C.
Okay.
Now here's the deal: if you optimize your characters correctly, things will go smoothly for you, but it won't necessarily be, at least for me, it was not fun. Here's the thing. You can play as Jacob and you can play as Evie. Certain missions require you to play as one or the other, and some you can play as both. But Jacob is the brawler.
Right.
Jacob is the brawler. He's the one you want to get into fistfights. Evie is the stealthier one of the two. However, don't let this fool you. Evie can fight just as well as Jacob if you upgrade her correctly. Jacob can't stealth as good as Evie.
No matter how much you upgrade.
Yeah, because Evie gets extra points of stealth, to the point where literally if she holds still while in sneak mode, she disappears. So, she literally turns invisible.
Yes, you have cloaking technology.
Yeah, and don't worry, that invisibility only works 50% of the time. Because sometimes I have been, I was resting on top of a carriage once, and I was cloaked, and then a guy got out, turned, and then the cloaking just disappeared for no reason. Okay, I guess the game works when it wants to. But the thing, we'll get more to that. I know exactly what you're about to bring up. But the fighting itself, I think they were trying to go in the same direction as Unity, but at least where Unity, you could have some satisfying stuff. In this, it's a button mashing simulator.
It infuriates me. The fighting in this is the worst I've ever seen in any game. I know that people say, in the first 2 Assassin's Creed games, it was way too easy. In this one, it is button mash. And here's the funny thing. I think before you fully upgrade, it takes 8 consecutive hits to bring down a normal person.
It takes 8 to 12 hits if the person is on the same level to you. If you're of a higher level, you can take them down in less. But
let's be clear here. In Assassin's Creed 2, all the way up through Unity, you had a wide variety of weapons to choose from in terms of weapons and armor to choose from in terms of what you use. Here, you only get brass knuckles, you get a sword cane, you get a kukri.
That's it.
That's it. Those are, and you can get different kinds of those, but that's all you can carry. None of them add any real. Like, here's the thing: you're carrying a kukri. Kukris are very deadly weapons, but they don't do any more damage than what a brass knuckle would do.
In certain cases, the brass knuckle is the better choice, but the thing is, like, if I see somebody get punched 30 times in the face, okay, maybe they're still alive. But if I see you get disemboweled with a kukri and you still are up there swinging, I go, okay, what are you made out of?
It should only take 2 strikes to kill with one of these. But the amazing thing is, it's just constant bash, 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 hit, bash, 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 bash. And I'm like, would you not get worn out doing this over and over and over again? I know,
I got worn out because literally there were some fights I had to pause because I was starting to develop carpal tunnel in my thumb because I had to switch from square to circle back and forth and then back to X too so I could break their guard.
And the range in this game
is okay. I have to talk about this.
Please do.
Apparently, I don't know what's going on up in the Ubisoft studios, but apparently they've never had any meaningful interaction with firearms before. Because up until like you get the final weapon in the game, the final gun in the game, which is an 1868 self-loading pistol, the gun damage is ridiculous because you're given revolvers and it can take 4 to 6 shots to kill someone. And you might be thinking, oh, well, you just need to get a headshot. No, it'll take 2 headshots with a freaking revolver to kill just a normal grunt at the same level. But you know what does kill them in one headshot? A throwing knife. Throwing knives, for the lion's share of the game, are a more effective tool than an actual gun. Yeah. And it boggles the mind.
It is incredible how messed up this is. But leaving out like the combat mechanics, carriage battles.
Oh gosh, I don't know who they said, like, you know, the carriage fight in the beginning of Revelations and the end of Revelations. You guys really like that, right? Well, we kind of thought it was just meh. What if we based our whole traveling around that? Because literally, you can't just ride a regular horse. You have to go around and travel through carriages, and it's incredibly annoying. Like, for example, there's bounty hunting missions where once you abduct a guy, you have to throw them into the back of a carriage. And then the nanosecond you get on top of that carriage to drive it to where you need to go, 4 enemy carriages pop out of nowhere and start trying to ram you off the road. The only way to effectively, consistently stop them is to stop the carriage, get off, and get into a brawl with them. You could try shooting at them, but remember, you gotta hope that the highlighted cursor goes over their bodies to shoot them, and then you still have to unload your the whole cylinder into them in order to effectively stop them. And they'll still try and jump on your carriage and try and stop you from doing whatever it is you're doing. The carriages are uneventful, they're incredibly annoying, and it made me beg for a horse the whole time. It's bad because while I was doing this, I would take breaks and I would play Red Dead Redemption 2, where you could ride horses and carriages and all that, and it was just done far better. It was an enjoyable experience in Red Dead 2 because you could get on a horse and you could actually work with guns cleverly. And this, it was clearly, why use a gun when you could button mash with a freaking brass knuckles? Oh, and button mashing isn't just exclusive. If they could, they would probably have made every single thing a button mash. I'm sure the developers killed themselves with the fact they couldn't make it button mash to finish dialogue.
Okay, so before we move on and talk about the grade for this, we do need to talk about the zip lining.
Oh gosh, the zip lining. So you meet Alexander Graham Bell, who's actually, I think they handle well. I would have liked to see more of him. He gives you a zip line, which seems basically they said the premise for this game is, what if we made the Arkham games but in Victorian London?
Yeah, literally. That's what I was thinking.
It's like, let's take Sherlock Holmes and merge him with Batman, but instead of being awesome like that, what I just said, it's terrible. But there is one saving grace to the gameplay. They took inspiration from what they did in Unity and the Hitman series, and when you actually do the final assassinations, they give you some options with how you could just run in guns blazing and go kill them. That's the quicker and cleaner way of doing it. Or you could try doing like special assassination requests where you can actually talk with people, try and unlock special things, and sort of use the area to your advantage. And I think some of those were well done, some were done not as well, but at least I could tell there was an idea there, and for a few of the assassination attempts, I was actually having something around fun. But those were the only real times. For the other lion's share of the game, it was just go wind up getting in a button mash fight and fail at stealth.
Right.
Because, yeah, just...
Terrible.
It's terrible. The stealth isn't, say, as egregious as Unity. Unity, actually, though, you could bump it up with, like, if you had the right gear. And the problem is, it's hard to do stealth when there's literally a guard in every pocket of the map.
I think what makes me laugh about the whole thing is just, in that trailer we saw a lot of things, and I feel like with this trailer, it was just basically saying, hey, look at all the things we won't let you do. Like carriage battles. See how he's jumping from one carriage to the other? You can't do that. Don't you see how he's riding this train, and that could be something really important? You don't use trains that much.
Yeah, because...
this one scene where you walk into a bar and recruit people in a bar to get people to join the Rooks, you never see him recruit Rooks. You see him beat rival gangs and then
say, come, everyone works for us now.
And then they just do. No one says, you know what, maybe I'm not going to be a crook anymore. But like we never see these things happen. The trailer sold something that the game did not provide, and I think that's a problem. But you're right, there were a few moments.
There were a few moments, and like with the carriage battles, it's like, yeah, I would love to see you try. Because anytime like you get on the roof to jump to another carriage, your carriage slows down. So,
all right, so that's a C. Last thing to grade, history. All right, so I know you got a lot to say about this. I'm just going to say this. I didn't like the way it handled itself historically. And I say that because for this reason. As you pointed out, Starrick himself is not based on a real person. He's not a real person in history. And I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. In fact, I say it's a great opportunity. Since a lot of your villains are not based on real people, you said only like 2 were. Since a lot of your villains aren't based on real people, you have the great opportunity to make them their own characters, give them their own unique ideology, give them their own unique backstory and outlook so that you could really have a great character here. And
like Hatham.
Like Hatham Kenway. You could really explore something incredible in these characters. And instead of doing that, they basically just went with the capitalism bad by making all the villains these industrial tycoons who don't care about the little people, when a lot of industrial tycoons of that time were not that callous. You know, that's a common misconception, that in the industrial age, all CEOs and business tycoons were just unfeeling plutocrats. Some were,
absolutely,
but that wasn't the general consensus.
Well, here's the thing. There were a lot of them, and they were detached, and there was sort of a disconnect between their own lives and the lives of the common people. And you can definitely argue that, but the problem is, this feels like an edgy teenager's understanding of the industrial era, not like an actual in-depth look at the actual problems that were going on. Well, like a good example is one of the missions that they tried to sell on the trail, like, you're liberating children. Well, here's the problem. Those factories that employ children, they didn't go out and like kidnap children and throw them in and say, now you must work. I mean, there were workhouses, you could argue they did something like, but that wasn't like every single factory. Typically it was, my family has a lot of children and we have a lot of mouths to feed. We need to get as much money as we possibly can. So we're going to go subject myself to working in the mines or working in the textile factories or something along those lines. They don't necessarily want to be there, but they're doing it because they have no choice. So in the game where you go through and you free the children and the Rooks come and they take them out, it's kind of like, well, now what do they do? Well, I guess now they're beggars on the street. I guess that's slightly better.
They don't seem to understand how the industrial age worked. It's like you said, it's just... we think, oh, we're freeing the working class, we're setting them free, we're ending oppression. You don't know how this time era worked.
Yeah, you don't, because, like, okay, they're not working in a factory now, they're just running around beating people up in the streets.
You know most kids didn't go to school, right?
Interesting. So,
that would have been a very cool... but
like, if Evie had, like, said, like, she wanted to use part of the Rooks' finances, like, establish schools and something for common working families or something, that would have been
kind of... But no, they don't do that.
But they don't... And I understand to a degree why they do it, but the thing is, the problem is, it's basically the bland, oversimplified version of the Victorian era without any nuance.
But don't you see the problem there? Like, it's kind of like, it's the Victorian era of England, one of England in its heyday. Like, the last time you can really say England was at its height, at its zenith. This was the last time you could truly say England was the center of power. around the world. Couldn't you use this opportunity to, I don't know, explore the British Empire?
Oh, dude, I would love it if the game said, like, hey, London is where you're going to work, but you're also going to visit Canada, Australia, India, South Africa. You're going to visit a lot of these areas and part of the British Empire, and that's how you're going to start to dismantle a lot of Steric's operations. I think that would have been a very clever way. And
even if it was just small things, kind of like when Ezio did his Leonardo weapons thing. Like, even if you only went there for like 1 or 2 missions.
Yeah, I think that could have really fleshed out the game, expanded it to a degree, and that would have made more sense, because you're dealing with the British Empire, but we're stuck in London.
And London's fine.
And honestly, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because literally, almost all of London, with the exception of Buckingham Palace and Westminster, looks the same. It all looks the same, except for like, oh look, we have a little park with a tree here. Yay! Everywhere else is covered with soot.
Well, my point being, not that I'm saying that it looks aesthetically fine. I'm saying a lot of other games took place in one city or one location.
I didn't like Unity for just taking place in Paris. I didn't like Brotherhood for taking place in Rome, but at least that was a follow-up game. And you still got to travel outside for the Leonardo missions.
Actually, I know this is a little off topic, but I got to point out, there's like these side missions you can do where you end up going to World War One.
Oh, right.
You go to World War One in London, and all I could think was, when you're watching World War One history, like World War One in London, all I'm thinking is, this would have been a better game.
Well, yeah, traveling across World War One in Europe would have been more interesting. But the thing is, you play as Jacob's granddaughter, and I kid you not, I have to bring this up because this is one of the dumbest things ever. You literally are sent into World War One, not by the assassins. Juno pulls you in so you can see the last Fry girl assassinate the cult that's following Juno and kill a sage.
We really haven't brought up Juno much in this because we hate her.
Yeah, we do. And Juno, after every time you do something in the World War One, things pops up and says, and basically explains her history, and basically, I'm not the enemy, I just want to be your benevolent overlord.
Juno, okay, I'm going to say this and then we'll get back to it, okay? Mm-hmm. Juno is, to me, the biggest mistake Assassin's Creed ever made.
Thank you.
You know what? No, here's the thing. I could forgive some of the precursor bullshit if it wasn't for Juno. Juno is the biggest mistake they've ever made. You know what this game used to be about? I know you might have forgotten, my viewing audience. You might have forgotten, but it was about 2 different ideologies, Templars and Assassins. 2 groups who believed in 2 different extremes who were fighting for control of the world. It's not about that anymore. It's no longer about that. It's now Templars, Assassins, and this cult of Juno who wants to bring Juno back. And here's the thing, what does she want to do? Ever since Juno was revealed in Brotherhood and then expanded upon in 3, it's like, who are you? Why do we... No, better yet, not who are you. Why do we care? What do you want from us? You keep saying, the world is almost ready for my return. To do what? To do what with us? You're going to return and do what? You're going to destroy all mankind? Well, there goes your working force. You're going to enslave all of mankind? Well,
How well did that work for you the first time?
Yeah, that worked out real great for you, you moron. And there's only one of you left. You really think you can take all of us? Bring it on, bitch. I'm Batman. It just comes down to this idiotic question that I feel I shouldn't ask in a video game that's fantasy, but I'm going to ask it. Why are you the way that you are, you magical goddess? Why do you exist in this world? Why are you a thing in this franchise? Why are we staking so much time and energy on you? I don't care about you. You know what? Fuck the Animus. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to swear, but... Screw the Animus. Screw the Animus. Screw what's going on outside the Animus. I don't care. Ever since Desmond died, I couldn't give less of a damn about what's going on outside of the Animus. No one should give a damn what's going on outside of the Animus. No one cares about the modern-day Templars or the modern-day Assassins. Sean's annoying. Rebecca's pointless. Everything else outside of those 2 characters, I don't care about. Have we even seen Desmond's father? How's he doing? Is he currently going through therapy now that his son, who he just got back together with and totally understands now and accepted now, is dead? Ooh, great job showing us that closure, you morons. This whole thing adds nothing. All it does is say, oh yeah, remember Juno? She's a thing. I don't care about Juno. What did she have to do with the game? What did she have to do with the adventures of Evie and Jacob? Did she have any relevance? No, she literally had so little relevance, she has to physically fuck with your game and drag you into another part of history entirely just to say, I matter! Who cares? Who cares about her?
sorry, I know that I'm losing my mind here, but every time I think about it, it makes me more angry. The precursors themselves were a dumb idea to begin with, but now you have centered everything around these characters, around Juno, and you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have done this. I would sooner see the Animus thrown in the garbage and just make each Assassin's Creed like a Final Fantasy thing. You know, where all of them are kind of vaguely connected somehow. Like, they all have kind of a vague connection to each other that is not related to the Animus. I don't care anymore. Can anyone please, in the comment section, I beg you, on bended knee, someone, tell me why Juno's relevant. Tell me why you actually think Juno is a good addition to these games, and why her cult is somehow making this game more enriching and fulfilling. I double dog dare you. It just goes to the things like, you already had an underground war between Assassins and Templars fighting for the free will of mankind, and then, oh yeah, then there's this crazy precursor lady running around going, meh.
Who gives a damn? There's so much.
Apparently, a few people that have infiltrated the Templars do.
Well, why would you? Like, why would you?
Because they're morons.
Anyway, okay. So back to the history. Okay, so
back to the history. Okay. So
sorry.
There's other issues with a lot of the history that, like, there's historical figures that show up in this game, but that's a bit like Charles Dickens and Charles Darwin show up, and you might ask, well, what do they have to do with the Assassins? They don't. They're just, hey, I'm here to give you a mission. That's great. And the thing is, at least Charles Dickens' missions have something to do that I could maybe say an assassin might get involved with. But Charles Darwin's mostly just like, hey, there's some people slandering my good name. Could you go and try and deal with that?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But the one that got you, though, was Karl Marx.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. Karl Marx showing up in the game was already a problem because they wouldn't let me kill him. But the thing is, Karl Marx is a very, 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 and I do mean very, controversial figure. And there's some people that really like his philosophies and theories, and there's people like me who I disagree with him very heavily. Now, the thing is, I figured, okay, Assassin's Creed is going to give us our take on Karl Marx. Let's see the take. And they gave us the most whitewashed, sugar-coated version of Karl Marx you can probably imagine. This is probably the holy messiah of a Karl Marx that every single person wearing a Che Guevara shirt imagines him to be. It was very clear they wanted to paint him in the most positive light possible. Now, my problem with that is how they've treated other historical figures in the press. Like, for example, in Assassin's Creed 3, a lot of people are kind of like, dude, you got a little personal about Assassin's Creed 3 and how they treated the Founding Fathers. That's because I acknowledge the Founding Fathers were human beings. They made a lot of mistakes, but I really admire what they did and the commitment they had to it, and I appreciate them, faults and all. Assassin's Creed 3 portrayed George Washington, a personal historical figure that I really look up to, as a bumbling moron, and did not do, like, they showed his flaws, but they really didn't take the time to actually show his good side, how he kept the army together, how he helped bring the nation into a whole. No, they didn't really do that. They kind of did my boy Washington dirty. And you know what? I can make peace with that. You know what? Maybe you don't like Washington. Fine, whatever. But then to go around a couple games later and say, oh yeah, Marx was this amazing, peace-loving person who never wanted to hurt a fly. He just cares so much about the laborers. He just wants to sing peace and kumbaya. When if you actually read Karl Marx, he's very critical of, the bourgeoisie, which they get right in the game. But he goes along saying, democracy is very important. We must we must do things peaceably. Now, Karl Marx, in actual history, did say the United States and Great Britain, it is possible that the workers could maintain their goals through peaceable means. But for the rest of Europe, he was waiting for guns to start going off. In fact, he criticized the Paris Commune when they lost in their little attempted revolution, and he said they only have themselves to blame because they tried to be too nice. They should have marched on Versailles when they had the chance. He and Engels make no small feat about how there should be violent revolution to overthrow the bourgeoisie because they believe the bourgeoisie would do everything they could to maintain power. And not to mention, let's say they wanted to focus on some of the lighter stuff that Marx wrote. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that Marx was a massive hypocrite. He lived off of the income of Engels' father, who owned a textile mill. He barely worked a day in his life, actually married into a bourgeoisie family because the art critic that he married was technically from a minor German noble family, though they did admittedly get kicked out of that title when they got exiled to London. But he was a constant drunk. He also had constant affairs, knocked up his own maid, and when she tried to get him to help out with the baby, kicked her out. Now, you might say, I'm not sure about all that, I'm not disputing, but the problem is, you have someone whose writings led to the mass murder of generations in the Soviet Union and Communist China, but we are going to treat him as though he is some sort of messiah, and it just boggles the mind that I thought, okay, Jacob and Evie, as much as you like quipping with people, why aren't you going to try and at least try and point out some of the flaws in his argument? No, they go as far as listing Karl Marx not just as other person, as ally. He is an ally to the assassins. And
that's a joke, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it's a joke. And I find it hilarious that Karl Marx, in-game, they puppet him and make him say, oh, we couldn't possibly have a violent revolution. We don't want violence. And then he's working with the assassins.
It's guys. Let's go ahead and say it. We give history what?
I gave it a C.
Okay, I would have given it lower, but C is fine because technically they did get most of London right.
They got most of London right.
They got kind of the difficulty of the Industrial Revolution down. They got Alexander Graham Bell pretty close to right. They got Queen Victoria pretty close to right. They got a lot of things close enough to right that we could give it a C. But in some of these areas, it was so flagrantly bad. Just making Marx a hero. Look, here's the thing. And I want to make this clear to everyone out there. If you support Marx's ideologies, go ahead. That's fine. Our issue is not that they made him a good guy. Our issue is that they haven't done the same service for anyone else in history. One of the things that I like about Assassin's Creed, one of the things we like about Assassin's Creed, is that they can take characters with that we've stereotypically looked up to or looked down upon and give them a new outlook. We can look at them from an objective and even different standard than we normally would. But you're not willing to do this with the Founding Fathers. In fact, Assassin's Creed 3 was very clearly hateful towards the Founding Fathers and was very cold and harsh towards the American dream as a whole, even ending with kind of a slap in the face about how America as an idea is hypocritical. Like with Connor looking at the slave merchants near the end of the game, as if to say, oh, well, nothing was really changed. We're still just a horrible country. It was an awful little slap at America, kind of saying, did you like America? Did you like the American Revolution? Did you like what it stood for? Screw you. We're telling you you're bad for it. With Marx, though, yes, show some of his good points, but show his bad points, too. No, we're going to show him as good as he possibly could be, and quite frankly, that is so disingenuous it hurts.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, he asked you to go stop a guy that's planning on blowing up stuff, and the thing is, I would have been okay with it if they said, like, listen. And when he's talking, he's like, no, there's a time and place for that. Now isn't that? Because that would have been more true to Karl Marx, because he didn't have a problem with violent revolution, but he did say there was a time and place for it. So it would have been more accurate to Karl Marx if he chastised the person for not having the foresight to wait for the opportune moment to strike. That would have been more accurate to Karl Marx. But no, they were afraid if they did that, people might go, ooh, Karl Marx is kind of a bad guy. And so they sugarcoated him.
Well, we've gone on for a very long time. So with all that, we said that history was a C. We said that gameplay was a C. We said that characters were an F, and we said that story was an F. What does this give us?
This gives us its overall as a D.
This is probably
the worst.
The worst Assassin's Creed game we've ever played. And frankly, Lark, I'm going to be real, like, it was painful to watch you play this. Like, you were clearly angry most of the time.
I've never had a game that made me button mash for a Gatling gun. You made using a Gatling gun unenjoyable.
I don't know how you do that. But the fact is, this was the worst. And now, if you guys like this game, great. We wouldn't, as I've said many times, we're not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't like. And we're not here to tell you not to play something or watch something that you enjoy. But for us, and making this tier list, this was the game that nearly broke us. This was the game that we hated vehemently. And now that we're done with it, you can bet we're uninstalling. We will never touch this game again. Want to know a true story? I'll tell you the story and then we'll wrap up. When I first got the game, I was super excited to play it. After playing through the first mission, I called PlayStation and asked if I could get a refund. They said no, obviously, but I was literally like, this can't be an Assassin's Creed game that they're proud of. It feels unfinished. It feels cartoonish in its character design and actions. It feels half-baked. The story is a joke. The history constantly takes backseat to Juno and to stroking Marx's ego as well.
I will give them this. At least, if you want to ignore the Marx missions, by golly, you can. And if you do happen to play this game, please ignore the Marx missions. They're really not even worth playing.
Anyway, so let's wrap up there. So this was I think we can safely say, without even having to go into the next few games, this was the worst Assassin's Creed game we've played.
Worst on just about every level. If you really say like, but I want an Assassin's game in the Victorian setting, just play Dishonored.
Yep.
Just it's a much better game. It's like, but that's supernatural. Yeah, well, this is.
Yeah, and Juno's totally down to earth and believable. Magical shrouds and apples and swords that can screw reality. Yeah, those are totally feasible.
You mean those aren't real?
We'll talk later. Okay, so now, guys, you probably know what this means. We are moving into the RPG Assassin's Creed games with Origins. Now, Lark still wants to do Origins, so he's agreed to still do that.
I'm Egyptian.
But here's the thing. The RPGs take much longer to play through, so don't be holding your breath for the next one. It's going to take some time.
Yes, but there's a distinctive difference.
What's that?
Assassin's Creed Origins is actually fun.
Yep, so you will enjoy it. All right. Well, this has almost been an hour-long video, guys.
I apologize.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video for this long. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you enjoyed it if you've watched it this long. We fully expect to hear your comments telling us how horribly inhuman we are for mocking this clearly amazing game we just don't understand. Thank you guys so much, and as always, we will see you in our next video. Take care.
Have a good one, fellas.